Emily Carter stood before her full-length mirror, staring at a version of herself the world had never seen. No designer gown, no jewelry, no flawless makeup. Just a simple white blouse, faded jeans, and a ponytail. The golden nameplate on her bedroom door still read Emily Carter, heiress to the Carter fortune. But as of today, she would no longer be that person, at least not publicly. "Are you sure about this?" her best friend, Lily James, asked, perched on the edge of Emily's bed. Emily exhaled. "Lily, I've dated actors, athletes, CEOs, and every one of them fell in love with my last name, not me. I want to find someone who loves me when I have nothing." "Most people fake wealth." "You're faking poverty," Lily said, raising an eyebrow. "This is either genius or completely insane." "I'm betting on genius," Emily said with a smile. That afternoon, Emily walked into one of her father's small courier service branches in Brooklyn under the alias Emily Brooks. She handed the HR manager a forged resume and got hired as a desk assistant. Her father, Richard Carter, had agreed to keep her identity confidential, though reluctantly. 3 months, he had warned her. "You'll be back the minute someone breaks your heart." Emily smiled at the memory. If only he knew, she wasn't afraid of heartbreak. She was afraid of never knowing real love. Her first few days at the office were quiet. No one recognized her. The dusty fan above her desk wheezed as it turned. She spent her time organizing waybills and answering calls. It was far from the luxury she was used to, but it felt freeing. Then came Ryan Blake. He was tall, sun-kissed from working delivery routes, with deep brown eyes that always seemed to be searching for something more. He walked with a quiet confidence, joking with everyone from the janitor to the grumpy regional manager. On his second day back from leave, he dropped a stack of delivery sheets on Emily's desk. "You're new," he said, his voice warm. "Yeah. Emily Brooks," she replied, extending her hand.
"Ryan."
"Ryan Blake. Welcome to chaos." He grinned. Emily laughed. "Is it really that bad?"
"Worse."
"But your smile just upgraded the front desk," he said, walking off. Her cheeks flushed. He didn't know who she was, and that made his compliment feel real. Over the next few weeks, Ryan became a constant in her day. He brought her coffee every morning and asked about her weekend plans. When she said she couldn't afford lunch, he'd pretend he bought too much and hand her a sandwich. He never acted like he was trying to impress her. He was just kind. One rainy Friday evening, the office emptied early. Emily was stuck without an umbrella. Ryan spotted her at the door, arms crossed, shivering. He took off his jacket and held it over both their heads. "Let's walk fast," he said. "Unless you're secretly trying to catch a cold." She laughed. "Not my idea of a good weekend." They dashed through the rain together, breathless and soaked but smiling. As they reached her bus stop, Emily turned to him. "You didn't have to walk me," she said softly. "I know," Ryan replied, "but I wanted to." In that moment, with the rain blurring the streetlights and her heart beating a little too fast, Emily knew she had found someone special. And Ryan? He had no idea the woman standing in front of him was worth billions. The rain had passed, but something had changed between them. After that night, Emily and Ryan began spending more time together, slowly at first. A coffee run turned into lunch breaks. Lunch breaks turned into long walks after work. Ryan never tried too hard, never made her feel like she owed him anything. He was simply present. And that presence was powerful. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan invited Emily to a community soccer match where he was coaching a local kids team. She arrived in a hoodie and jeans, hoping to blend in, but Ryan waved at her from the sidelines like she was the only person in the world. After the game, the kids huddled around him, sweaty and laughing. "You're a hero to them," Emily said, handing him a bottle of water. Ryan smiled. "Nah, I just show up. That's more than most people do." She noticed how the kids clung to him. He wasn't rich, but he was generous with his time, his attention, his kindness. They sat on a park bench as the sun dipped low. "Do you ever wonder if love is even real?" Emily asked, almost under her breath. Ryan leaned back, his arm casually resting along the bench's backrest. Real love, he repeated.
Yeah.
I think it's rare. But when it hits you, you know. It's not fancy dinners or flowers. It's staying when things get tough. It's listening when the world is loud. Emily turned toward him, surprised. That was oddly specific. I grew up watching my mom beg a man to stay. He left anyway. I swore I'd never be that guy. Her heart clenched, not out of pity, but because she believed him. Anyone would be lucky to have you, she whispered. Ryan turned to her, something shifting in his eyes. Are you saying that anyone could be you? Emily smiled. Maybe. Weeks passed. The line between maybe and definitely blurred quickly. One evening, Ryan invited her to a quiet dinner in his small apartment. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti, candles, and the soft hum of jazz from an old Bluetooth speaker. As she walked in, he said nervously, Look, I know I'm not some big shot. I can't offer you a mansion or diamonds, just this version of me that's honest and loyal. Emily stared at him, overcome with emotion. He had no idea he was speaking to a woman who could buy 10 mansions by tomorrow morning. You have no idea how much that means to me, she replied. After dinner, they danced barefoot in his living room, her head resting on his chest. His heartbeat was steady, comforting. 2 months later, they were officially a couple. Ryan, ever the gentleman, didn't rush things. But one evening, as they sat watching the stars from his apartment's rooftop, he looked over and asked, Have you ever thought about getting married someday? Emily nodded. Yes. But only if it's real. Only if I know they love the real me. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, simple ring. I can't offer you riches, Emily. Just my whole heart. Emily gasped. She hadn't expected it, not yet. But somehow it felt right. She took the ring, tears in her eyes. I don't need anything else. And just like that, they were engaged. No fanfare, no press, no prenups or million-dollar rings. Just love, raw and true. Emily Brooks had become Ryan Blake's world. And he had no idea she was Emily Carter, the hidden heir of one of the richest families in America. The morning air smelled like lilacs and dew. Emily stood in front of a small, full-length mirror inside a modest church restroom. Her dress wasn't designer. It was a vintage, lace-trimmed gown she found at a thrift shop. No veil, no diamonds, just a simple silver chain around her neck and her hair swept into a soft bun. You ready? Lily whispered from the doorway, tears already forming in her eyes. Emily turned and smiled. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. She took a breath and stepped out. The chapel was quiet and intimate. Just 20 guests sat in wooden pews, mostly Ryan's friends and a few coworkers who didn't even know her real name. Emily's father, Richard Carter, had promised to stay away to protect her secret. Lily stood in as her family. At the altar, Ryan stood tall in a dark gray suit. It was ironed to perfection, even though he'd borrowed it from a friend. When he saw Emily walk in, his eyes widened like it was the first time he'd ever seen her. He wasn't looking at her dress. He was looking at her soul. When she reached the altar, he took her hands and whispered, You look like magic. The officiant spoke briefly before allowing them to read their vows. Ryan went first. I never had much growing up, just dreams and a big heart. And somehow, this world led me to you. I may not have riches or power, but I swear, Emily, I will never let a day go by without making sure you feel loved, protected, and cherished. Emily's voice trembled as she began. I was lost before I met you. Not because I had nothing, but because I had too much and couldn't tell what was real anymore. But then, I met you. You reminded me that love isn't about what you have. It's about who you are. And you, Ryan, are everything. They exchanged rings, simple silver bands they picked out together from a small shop near the train station. The officiant smiled warmly. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Ryan leaned in gently, his hands cupping her face. The kiss was soft, sacred. After the ceremony, they walked into the sunshine hand in hand. No paparazzi, no crowd, just the rustling of trees and the clapping of a few friends. They celebrated with cake in a friend's backyard, danced under string lights, and toasted with apple cider instead of champagne. Emily looked at Ryan that night, his tie loose around his neck, laughing with his arms around her waist, and thought, "This is what I prayed for. This is real." She had given up everything for this, her name, her world, her power, and in return, she received something far more precious. Love. Pure and undiluted. Or so she thought. 6 months into their quiet married life, Emily sat at the kitchen table sipping tea while Ryan hummed in the shower. Their tiny apartment still smelled like fresh paint and takeout noodles. They didn't have much, but love filled the cracks where luxury once lived. But Emily hadn't forgotten her purpose. She had set out on a journey to find a man who loved her for who she was, and she believed she'd found him. Now she needed to be sure. That afternoon, while Ryan was out running errands, Emily picked up her phone and dialed a private line. "Dad," she said quietly. "Emily," Richard Carter answered, his voice guarded but soft. "It's been a while." "I'm okay," she said quickly, still keeping up the disguise. "Still married." "You sound happy," he said. "I am, but I need your help." There was a pause. "What kind of help?" She took a breath. "I want to give Ryan an opportunity. Something big. I want to see if success changes him." Richard sighed. "You want to test him?" "I need to. If he stays the same, I'll know it's real. But if he changes, I'll know I made a mistake." Her father didn't argue. 2 weeks later, Ryan came home with a spark in his eyes. "Babe," he called out, holding up a crisp envelope. "You won't believe this." "What happened?" she asked, drying her hands. "I got a call from this private company. Apparently someone submitted my logistics proposal. I completely forgot I even entered. And they approved it. It's a $3.2 million contract over 2 years." Emily's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Yes. They said they'd fund my startup, give me an office space, equipment, even vehicles." She ran to hug him. "That's amazing, Ryan." He spun her around, beaming. "This is it, Em. We're gonna make it." The next few weeks moved fast. Ryan registered a company under the name Blake Transit, leased an office space in the city, and hired 5 employees. He bought Emily a new phone, surprised her with a designer bag, and took her out to fancy restaurants she'd never even noticed before. He was the same sweet Ryan, just more confident, more vibrant. For a while, Emily believed the money hadn't changed him. One night, as they lay in bed, Ryan looked over at her. "I want to build you a house," he said. "One with a garden and a piano room. You've always wanted that, haven't you?" Emily blinked back tears. "Yes, I have." He kissed her forehead. "Then it's done." But as the months rolled on, subtle cracks began to appear. Phone calls during dinner, late nights at the office, parties with executives Emily didn't know. One night, he came home at 2 a.m., reeking of whiskey and cologne that wasn't hers. "Where were you?" she asked softly. "Networking," he said, not meeting her eyes. "You could have called." He frowned. "Emily, I'm building a business. I don't have time to check in every 5 minutes." She said nothing, but her heart quietly noted the shift. The next morning, Emily opened his phone while he showered. She didn't want to be that wife, but curiosity gnawed at her peace. She found messages from a woman named Chloe. "Had a great time last night, face blowing-a-kiss. Let's do it again. Don't let your boring wife ruin our vibe." Emily's hands trembled. She didn't confront him, not yet. She watched, waited, observed how he began to dismiss her ideas, forget their plans, treat her with condescension. He no longer asked how her day went, no longer held her hand at night. The man who once gave her his jacket in the rain now left her standing in emotional storms. That night, as she lay in bed with her eyes open and tears running silently, she realized this test was working, and Ryan was starting to fail. 6 months had passed since Ryan landed the big contract, and everything about him had changed, except his name. The man Emily married used to come home early just to hold her. Now, she counted the hours he stayed out, watching the clock strike midnight more times than she could bear. It started small, A forgotten dinner date, a missed call. Then came the excuses. I had a client meeting. We ran late after the pitch. I didn't want to wake you, but it was always the same perfume lingering on his shirt, not hers. One Saturday morning, Emily cooked his favorite breakfast, pancakes with fresh strawberries and black coffee. She wore the same pale blue sweater he once said made her look like heaven. He walked in, scrolling on his phone, sunglasses still on despite being indoors. You're up early, she smiled. Ryan didn't look up. I've got a lunch meeting. I made breakfast. He glanced at the table and scoffed. Pancakes again? Emily, you need to get out more. We're not broke anymore. The words hit like a slap. I thought you liked. I liked a lot of things before, he interrupted coldly. He grabbed his keys and walked out, leaving her alone at the table, the syrup growing cold beside untouched food. The verbal jabs became frequent. One evening, after she gently asked if he could come home earlier, Ryan exploded. You think I'm cheating, don't you? He shouted. Emily, calm but shaking, replied, I just want us to be close again. He grabbed a glass from the table and smashed it against the wall. You're suffocating me, Emily. You don't belong in my world anymore. Tears streamed down her face. What world, Ryan? The one we built together, or the one you're faking now? He stepped closer, eyes hard. I'm a millionaire now. You're just a poor girl I felt sorry for. Then, for the first time, he slapped her. Emily didn't scream. She didn't run. She just stood there, stunned, because the man who once danced with her in a living room filled with fairy lights had become a stranger in an expensive suit. The physical violence didn't happen often, but the emotional bruises were daily. He flaunted new watches, new women, new friends. He started bringing women into their home under the excuse of business. When she protested, he laughed in her face. You should be grateful I haven't thrown you out yet, he said one night, sipping wine beside a woman who winked at Emily before taking his hand. You're not even that pretty, he added. You're lucky I married you when I did. That night, Emily lay curled on the bathroom floor, her hand pressed to her lips to muffle the sobs. She had given him everything, love, loyalty, even wealth he didn't know came from her. Now, he treated her like an inconvenience. But in her pain, something hardened. He thought he had all the power. He thought she was just a nobody. He had no idea who he was truly married to. And soon, he would find out. The house was quiet, but Emily's soul was loud with grief. Ryan had gone out again, said he had urgent meetings. But Emily no longer asked where, when, or why. The answers were always lies. The smell of foreign perfume on his clothes, lipstick on napkins in his pockets, and hotel receipts in his drawers were all the answers she needed. She stood by the kitchen sink, scrubbing the same plate over and over. Her fingers were raw, but she didn't stop. The real pain was somewhere else, deeper. She heard the door open. Ryan walked in, tipsy and laughing on the phone. I told her I'd buy her that Mercedes next week, he slurred. She's hotter than hold on. He looked up, surprised to see Emily still awake. What? He barked. Why are you standing there like a ghost? Emily said nothing. She just turned off the tap and walked past him. He laughed. That's what I thought. Later that night, she sat by the bedroom window staring out into the empty street. Moonlight washed over her pale face as silent tears fell down her cheeks. He doesn't see me anymore. He doesn't hear me. He doesn't love me. She had begged him to be the man she fell in love with. She had tried to remind him of their promises. The rooftop talks, the rain-soaked walks, the cheap dinners that once meant everything. But Ryan had replaced all of it with luxury, women, and fame. And worst of all, he enjoyed watching her suffer. A week later, he brought home another woman. This time he didn't hide it. This is Jenna, he said casually as they walked into the living room. She's staying over tonight. You can sleep on the couch. Emily stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. You're bringing a woman into our home? She asked quietly. Ryan turned, shrugged. What home? I paid for this place. And you? You're just what? Decoration? Jenna laughed. That was the moment Emily's heartbreak transformed into silence. No more crying. No more begging. She nodded gently. Okay. She packed a small bag, went upstairs, and left without another word. She didn't go to a hotel. She went to Lily's house. And for the first time in months, she broke down completely. I gave him everything, she whispered between sobs. My love, my heart, even the wealth he flaunts. I gave it all and he threw me away like garbage. Lily hugged her tight. You're not garbage, Em. You're gold. He's just too blind to see it. Emily wiped her tears and took a deep breath. Then maybe it's time I show him what gold looks like when it bites back. 2 days after leaving, Emily returned. Not to stay. Not to fight. Just to end it. Ryan was in the living room, sipping from a glass of red wine, his legs propped up on the marble coffee table she once polished with her bare hands. A new woman, brunette, barely dressed, sat beside him, flipping through a magazine like she lived there. Emily walked in quietly, dressed in simple slacks and a white blouse. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was clean, bare, no makeup, no tears. Ryan looked up, startled for a moment, then smirked. Well, well, look who decided to visit the king's castle. Emily didn't flinch. She placed a folder on the table in front of him. What's this? He asked, eyeing it. Divorce papers. The brunette blinked, suddenly uncomfortable. Ryan leaned forward, flipping the cover open. You serious? Yes, Emily said calmly. I'm done. He stared at her for a beat, then laughed, a long, arrogant, chest-thumping laugh. About damn time. I thought I'd have to drag you out myself. Emily's jaw tightened slightly, but she remained composed. I already signed. You can too. He grabbed a pen without hesitation and scribbled his name across the bottom of the page. No need for lawyers. You've got nothing I want, he sneered. Just leave the keys to the apartment on your way out. Emily gave a small smile. Of course. That night, Ryan threw a party. An actual party. He invited friends, models, a few business partners, and a bottle of champagne so expensive it could pay someone's rent. He stood on the rooftop of his penthouse, drunk with pride. To freedom, he shouted, raising his glass. To the idiot who left a broke girl and got his life back, someone yelled. Ryan laughed hard. He had no idea he was celebrating the beginning of his downfall. Across town, Emily sat across from her father, Richard Carter, in his private study. Lily sat beside her, sipping wine. So, Richard said, folding his hands. It's time? Emily nodded. I want everything back. The house. The cars. The contract. And I want his name completely erased from Carter Holdings. Her father smiled. With pleasure. The next morning, Ryan woke up to 3 missed calls from his bank. Your accounts have been frozen pending a compliance investigation, said the voice on the voicemail. Confused, he grabbed his phone and called his business manager. Blake Transit has been blacklisted. The contract was pulled. What do you mean pulled? He shouted. And sir, the house and cars are no longer in your name. They were leased through Carter Holdings. Ryan dropped the phone. Carter Holdings. His breath caught in his throat. Carter. Emily. No. 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 It can't be. But it was. The woman he mocked, abused, and discarded was not just his wife. She was Emily Carter. And everything he had ever bragged about was hers. Ryan stood in the middle of his once glorious penthouse, frozen. The morning sun poured through the glass windows, but nothing felt bright anymore. 3 cars gone. Bank accounts frozen. Contract revoked. His assistant had stopped answering. His clients had gone silent. The girl he'd slept with last night left without a word when he told her his card declined at checkout. He tried calling anyone. No one picked up. He turned on the TV, hoping for distraction. But there she was, on every major news channel. Emily Carter breaks silence. Billionaire heiress reveals she lived in disguise to find true love. She stood beside her father, Richard Carter, at a Carter Holdings press conference. Poised, elegant, powerful. The caption at the bottom of the screen read, Emily Carter, CEO, philanthropist, and ex-wife of disgraced entrepreneur Ryan Blake. Ryan stared in disbelief as Emily spoke into the microphone. I once believed love could survive anything, even lies, even betrayal. But I learned that love isn't real when it's tested by power and fails. I gave everything, and in return, I was made to feel like nothing. The reporters gasped. I was never just a receptionist. I was never the broke girl in the background. I am Emily Carter. And this company, this legacy, has always been mine. A reporter asked, "What happens to Mr. Blake now?" Emily glanced sideways, her smile calm but sharp. "He'll have to rebuild the way I did. From the ground up." Ryan dropped the remote. No, 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 no. He rushed to his closet. Empty. His designer suits? Gone. He sprinted to the garage. Nothing but oil stains where his sports car used to be. The doorbell rang. He opened it to see a sheriff and two representatives from Carter Holdings. "Mr. Blake," one of them said, "you've been served. You are being evicted from this property effective immediately." It was under corporate lease. What? No, this is my home. Not anymore. They handed him a folder. Ryan stood there barefoot in a wrinkled t-shirt as the world watched him fall. His neighbors stared. Some filmed. From the penthouse to the pavement. 2 days later, Ryan sat in a rundown motel. One suitcase. No job. No home. No friends. He stared at his phone. No calls. No texts. Just news headlines. The rise and fall of Ryan Blake. From millionaire to broke, how greed cost one man everything. He scrolled to Emily's social media. Millions of followers. Praise in every comment. She's a queen. She handled it with so much grace. She gave him everything, and he still ruined it. He stared at her photo. Not the woman in the thrift store dress, but the woman in a tailored white blazer, eyes blazing with calm power. He whispered her name. Emily. But it was too late. The video of Emily Carter's reveal had already surpassed 10 million views in less than 24 hours. News outlets ran special segments. Blogs dissected every second of her speech. Influencers quoted her words with hashtags like #RealQueen and #PowerInSilence. Everywhere, people were asking the same question. How could Ryan Blake not know? The following evening, Carter Holdings held an exclusive gala in Manhattan to celebrate a new expansion deal. The media swarmed the red carpet. Emily arrived in a custom white evening gown that hugged her figure like armor. Her hair was swept up, diamond earrings glittering under the lights. She stepped out of a sleek black car and waved at the cameras like the royalty she was. Beside her walked her father, Richard Carter, proud and steady. "She doesn't even look like the same girl," a journalist whispered. "That's because she's not," another replied. "This is the real her." Inside, the CEO of Carter Holdings raised his glass. "I present to you," Richard said, "our new vice chairwoman, and the woman who reminded us all that dignity is louder than revenge, my daughter, Emily Carter." The applause was thunderous. Emily stepped forward and smiled. "I was once told I didn't belong in someone's world," she said softly. "But today, I stand here, having built one of my own." Back in his motel room, Ryan watched the live stream on his cracked phone. His once golden life now played out like a movie he was no longer cast in. He stared at her on screen. Not the poor wife he used to mock, but a force of grace and power. A knock interrupted his thoughts. It was a former investor, the only one kind enough to see him. "I heard the full story," the man said. "I didn't know she was Emily Carter." "Neither did I," Ryan muttered. The man scoffed. "She gave you everything, even a second chance you never knew was a test. And you threw it away for women and wristwatches." Ryan lowered his eyes. "I thought I had her figured out." "No," the man said. "You never even knew who she was." The internet tore him apart. Memes flooded in. "When you fumble a billionaire in disguise." Ryan Blake, certified clown. He had a queen, wanted a side chick. Now he's sleeping in a side motel. Brands pulled out of his old company. Investors blacklisted him. Former friends deleted his number. Women who once flirted now posted, "So glad I dodged that walking red flag." But the most painful moment of all? A clip posted by Carter Holdings titled, "Dear Ryan from Emily." It was her voice, layered over a montage of photos of their early love, walks in the park, cooking in their old apartment, dancing in the rain. Her words echoed gently. Ryan stared at the ceiling of his motel room that night, tears streaming silently down the sides of his face. He had lost a woman who had loved him in secret, and now the whole world knew the truth. A month had passed since Emily's story broke the internet. The world had moved on to newer scandals. But Emily had not forgotten. She didn't live in pain, not anymore, but the wound Ryan left behind would take time to fully close. She now spent her days building something new, a foundation called Second Light, dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after emotional and financial abuse. Donations poured in. Volunteers signed up in droves. But what shocked everyone wasn't the charity itself. It was what Emily decided next. A press conference was held on a sunny afternoon. Emily stood at the podium, dressed in a soft pink suit, calm and glowing. "I know many people have asked, what will happen to Ryan Blake?" she began. Cameras zoomed in. "I won't press charges. I won't sue. And I won't destroy whatever's left of his life, because that's not who I am. That was never the point." She paused. The point was the lesson. The world saw what money can do to a heart that's not ready to carry it. And I hope he now sees that too. Elsewhere, in a small community library, Ryan sat watching the broadcast alone. He looked thinner now, quieter, not broken but humbled. When the speech ended, he stood up, walked to the checkout desk, and handed over a small manila envelope. The librarian opened it. It was an application to volunteer for local food drives. "I just want to be useful," Ryan said. The librarian smiled kindly. "We all start somewhere." One evening, Emily visited the old rooftop where Ryan had once proposed. She stood alone, watching the city lights shimmer like stars fallen to earth. Behind her, footsteps approached. It was Lily. "You okay?" she asked. Emily nodded. For the first time in a long while, yes. They sat in silence for a while before Lily said gently, "He's different now. Word is he's helping in shelters. Apologizing to people he hurt. Quiet. Focused." Emily closed her eyes, letting the wind carry her thoughts. "I don't hate him," she said. "I just finally love myself more." A week later, Emily received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. "Dear Emily, I don't expect forgiveness. But I do want to say thank you. You gave me everything. And when I lost it, I found who I really was. Not a millionaire. Not a CEO. Just a man with a lot to learn. And I'm learning. You were never the burden. You were the blessing. Ryan." Emily folded the letter, smiled softly, and placed it in a drawer beside old photos of their early love. Not as a memory of pain, but as a reminder. Even heartbreak can bloom into purpose. That weekend, Emily stood on a stage, addressing a room full of women at her foundation. "I'm not here because I survived," she said. "I'm here because I rose." Applause filled the hall. And in that moment, under soft lights and hopeful eyes, Emily Carter knew. She had lost a man, but she had found herself. And that was the greatest love story of all. You had my heart. You had my trust. You had everything. And when the world gave you power, you chose to leave me behind. Not because I wasn't enough, but because you never were.